Shall we? Hi, Ian. How you doing? Let's see if I can do this right today. Morning. Good morning to you. All right. Here we go. Is this thing on? All right. I will start with my normal remarks, which I'm sure will not be great. We'll see. All right, welcome members and friends and free staters. Welcome to the guests, and I'm glad everybody made it through the winter, through all your sicknesses, and got here today on this beautiful day. It's an honor to have you all here, and back in this beautiful spring day at a historic and elegant 1884 courthouse right here in bustling downtown Denby. As a matter of fact, a well-known local historian once wrote that Denby was the center of the universe. Let that sink in for a second, and then it was a setting where someone could live a tranquil and fulfilling life. Very tranquil around here. This is 700 residents at one point, you know. So as hyperbolic as all that was, certainly there was a time when living here, Warwick County, Denby, whatever, was idyllic. You know, a really beautiful place to be. And it was made up of sturdy, church-going community of solid-minded, and I must stress this one, stubborn watermen, store owners, and truck farmers. Still, there were a lot of shenanigans going on, some involving a mule named Henry, a goat that was run off of the top floor of the hotel across the street. They were chasing it around on the upper floor. Moonshine hidden from teetotalers on the train down at Lee Hall. So here's an example. There were endless practical jokes around here. One example is someone shimmied up the Confederate monument when it was still here, out there, shimmied up to the top of it, put a scarf around the soldier's neck and a half-drunk bottle of moonshine, a jar of moonshine in his hand, and that was to keep him warm every night, you know. So that kind of thing went on a lot around here. All right, so, and there's a lot of other stories like that. So again, we're glad to have you all here on this last acre of old Warwick County where we strum the chords of the old county to keep the song going, keep the song alive. We are living in a time when we're still sort of relatively close to when Warwick was a county, the county was a county. So it occurred to me that it's up to us to record everything we can of it, lest we become a footnote, you know, to Newport News and whatever. So Warwick County was here a long time ago. Newport News and its thing was one of the very first recognized place names in the New World here. So Newport News goes way back as well. But Warwick County was 70 square miles. The city of Newport News, when incorporated, was 4 square miles. And immediately busting at the seams, immediately annexing, taking over property, you know, they just didn't have any place to go. So it was all, everyone was into Warwick County and Elizabeth City County, which is Hampton now. But so there was a series of 7 annexations that led to a consolidation, which led to where we are today. The old retired courthouse here and all of that. So, all right, so we're not so far out. It was 67 years ago of the consolidation. And I wonder, in 67 years, what will be the legacy of this old Warwick County here? You know, will anyone remember? And you know, if it's up to us, they will. You know, we're gonna have to record everything we can record, and it is up to us to do this. Before we get so far away from what the county was, no one will remember anything about it. So that's that part. So we are blessed today with the presence of Nick Lucchetti. Hi, I'm Nick Lucchetti. How y'all doing? We got a call this morning that he couldn't make it. He was sick. So it kind of threw a little monkey wrench into what we're doing today, but we're going to be all right. What I thought too is maybe we would see if we can reschedule him, and since we're booked for the season, maybe do an evening event. Maybe the society can cater it, and feed everybody they send to show up, and get Nick Lucchetti back, and we'll do the Lost Colony thing then. Sometime this year, we'll try to reschedule him in. I think he'll probably do it. You think so, Mary? All right, so we don't have Nick Lucchetti here today, which would have been great. But we do have a great start to our new season. We've got an agenda full for the year. Gosh, that was booked last year pretty much, and we're no problem getting presentations. So we're booked up through November. And then you might have noticed in the second page of Mulberry Island notes that the courthouse had a event that happened to it. We've been talking about for a good while. There was a grant that was coming that would help us with the 1810 courthouse over there. And the grant came through probably at like the worst time it could have. But we had to, in a day, move everything out of that courthouse that we've been collecting 15 years in there. So it was quite a load. We had a team of people from the city, and Mary Kay helped, and Henry was here, he helped. And we boxed up and crated up pretty much everything that was in the 1810 courthouse. And our member, Chuck Welcher, donated a storage unit for us. And we were able to move everything to storage, and they blew out the whole inside of the courthouse. But it's beautiful. They've repainted every surface, every bit of trim. They've replastered all the ceilings in there. Got new electrical outlets. We had 2 outlets in that building and 19 things plugged into each one, you know, the way that was. So that wasn't real safe, and happy to have that behind us now. But the courthouse is a mess over there. It is a huge mess. We've got like big file cabinets we need to get moved back over there, and then get the office put back together, and presentations display, glass cabinets, all of Mary Kay stuff too. Quite a job over there, and what I thought was, let's take our time with it. We'll put everything back in there, and everything we had in there doesn't need to go back in, so we're gonna sort of downsize things a little bit and clean it up in there, and keep it as much to the 1810 appearance as it was, you know, much as possible. So it's gonna be a museum space for us again, and we're gonna do it better this time. So do that. What else did I write here? All right, I'd like to thank everybody who contributed to the latest Mulberry Island notes. Gloria Rogers, thank you very much. Air disaster over Warwick County. You were surprised to find that in there, yeah. Fred Bolt, who's not here today, he contributed several articles to that newsletter. And Dawn Worsham did as well. She did some wonderful work. And she has started a series of articles, which is the lead one on here, the Grave Matters. And she has a couple more up her sleeve that she's going to tell us about. If you want. You can stand up and speak, or you can get on the mic. I don't care. Here she is.
How long do you want me to talk?
Just a minute or so.
Just a minute.
Yeah. Whatever you want.
Good afternoon. In case we haven't met, my name is Dawn Worsham, and I'm the pastor's wife at Lebanon Christian Church in Lee Hall. And first of all, I would like to invite the ladies Saturday. I know you can't see this, but this is a flyer. I have more of them if you didn't get one. We're having a ladies' tea at 2 p.m. and we're going to have a person of the past with us, Mrs. Elizabeth Henry Campbell Russell. And Mrs. Russell was very involved in the early 19th century of what's called the American Reformation, or the Second Great Awakening. And Mrs. Russell was very involved with her husband in the spread of Methodism out to the frontier, which of course was still in Virginia at that time. So Mrs. Russell will be with us. She was also, if you recognize in her pedigree of names, the name Henry. She was the youngest sister of Patrick Henry, the voice of the Revolution. Okay. So we look forward to hearing more about Mr. Henry as well. So we're located at 409 Yorktown Road. We're right across the street from historic Enview. And our church is a little known jewel of history in that corner of Warwick County right there. Our old sanctuary, as we fondly refer to it, was built in 1859. And it has continuously served has a house of worship in Newport News, in Warwick County in Newport News, for 165 years. It had a brief pause during the Civil War when that started in 1861 and became a courier station during the time when the Confederacy was still controlling the area. And then it was used as a stable when the Union troops took control of the area. There is a ton of history in there. And as a historian, I am really enjoying uncovering it. For many, many years, I have been a graveyard nerd. Yes.
I love to read old tombstones too.
Groovy. Then you'll love my article in the Mulberry Island Notes. So I've been doing that since I was a teenager, wandering around through cemeteries and wondering, you know, who was this person? What was their life like? And when I came to Lebanon, my husband and I, 32 years ago, I loved it that the graveyard was there, and I started uncovering all this history. And you can learn a lot about the community as you wander through graveyards. So I've taken a little bit of a different perspective with this series of articles. They're all people that many of you know and are familiar, or knew about, and are familiar with their history. The first article here is on Thomas G. Wynn. Mr. Wynn was one of the first 4 charter members of the permanently established Church of Lebanon in 1859. He is buried in the original graveyard in the back of the church, and Fred Bolt, who, he's not here, right, but he was related to Thomas Wynn.
He related to everybody.
Yeah. So his great-grandfather, right?
Something like that, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, his great-grandfather. And it was a privilege for me to look into Mr. Wynn's life from the perspective of what's told about him on his gravestone, and then take that information into research. So I hope you enjoy reading the article as much as I enjoy writing it. The second article that I'm working on now will be on Mariah Curtis, and many of you recognize her as the woman who lived across the street from us at historic Enview. Mariah Curtis is our heroine at Lebanon, and she is known for digging in after the Civil War to restore the community of faith in Lee Hall. She is also buried in our graveyard. After I talk about Mariah, I'm going to talk about her son, Simon Curtis. One of the things that and many of you probably already know this, but one of the things that I was struck by with Mariah's character was when she was a refugee in Danville during the war. She had 2 small toddlers, and she gave birth to Simon Curtis in Danville while they were in exile. And I am just so struck by her courage with many things. And then Simon carrying on her good works when they came back to Lee Hall, and after he grew up, he contributed a lot to our community. After that, I'll be writing about William Minor and his little brother, Samuel Minor. I don't believe their remains are in our graveyard. I think they're still out at Fort Eustis. But
On the golf course.
Have stones there.
Golf course, I believe.
Pardon?
On the golf course.
Yes, along with Dr. Curtis.
Yep.
So that will be the last article in this series. And again, I'm just very struck by the courage of those 2 men. Lee Hall is an exciting, fascinating place to live, and I love bringing it back to life from times of the past. Thank you all so much for listening to me go on for more than a minute.
It's all right. It's okay. It's all right.
And I look forward to getting to know you all better. Thank you.
See you as well.
Thank you.
All right, so here's where I'm talking about the courthouse over here. The 1810 courthouse underwent some upgrades. As you can see in the newsletter, it looks brand new. It's 215-year-old chic over there now. And it's like feng shui and all of that. Everything that was in there was shuffled into boxes and bins, and our member Chuck Welcher donated his storage building and gave us boxes and stuff. It was very nice. Anyway, we have storage space now where half the courthouse is located. And a big job awaits us as we reassemble, reorganize everything. Henry is going to work on the display cabinets when we get him back, and we're going to redo the displays in the museum space over there. Sharon and I are going to get the office back together, if we can.
All about trolleys on the peninsula. It's called Trains, Trolleys, and Streetcars. It will be 10 to 4 p.m. at the depot. Within the building, we will have special games and crafts and activities. And then at 1 p.m., ticketed holders may board one of the city's new branded trolleys for an exploration of the peninsula and the history of former trolleys and streetcars that roamed these parts at one time. If you wish to purchase a ticket, you can get one at the depot in advance. It costs $15, or online on the Newport News Historic Facebook site. Eventbrite sells the tickets as well. So there are only 20 seats available on the trolley. And by the way, your hosts are yours truly and J. Michael Moore. And among the places we'll be going include the new Transportation Center on Bland Boulevard, and also the 390 streetcar warehouse at Fort Monroe. You may remember Greg Siegel, the director of that project, spoke to us, I don't know,
Years ago.
10 years ago,
Yeah.
about the restoration. The 390 is the only remaining streetcar of all the ones that at one time operated on the peninsula. So this is very exciting. I think you will enjoy it. So be sure to be one of those 20 lucky people. And if you have any more questions, ask me. I'm sitting down.
Okay. What I thought, since we talked about this in the board meeting, we never have room in our schedule to sort of have like an open meeting here a little bit. So we are going to put a picture on the screen, talk about it. Okay? Anybody who, maybe we'll all learn a little something. You want to do Miriam and Mark?
After is fine.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, and Patrick wants to say something as well? You can if you want. I don't see why not. I'll put the first picture up.
Rather quickly, we're just going to present this and handle the business and then after. But at our last meeting, when Courtney, CRM of Mulberry Island, JBL Eustace, decided to give her presentation, at the end, Henry made a request for artifacts, telling us how difficult it was for them to fill out displays. So we, with the help of our new intern Harrison, began assembling an artifact assembly to loan to the Warwick County Historical Society for display. And we've got some really good ones, and they can look through it, you know, at a later date. But like I said, it's just something we wanted to do for you guys. I know some of you guys are a little bit newer, and I haven't met everybody here, or neither has Courtney. But a lot of you folks share the same things that we do, which is an undying respect and fire to keep tradition, especially of this area, alive. And you all respect history, and we greatly appreciate the long-standing relationship we've had with the Warwick County Historical Society, previously FEHA, or whatever you want to call it.
More than 30 years.
Yeah, the Matthew Jones House would not be here if it wasn't for the original people that started FEHA, and we would not have grown as archaeologists and as a cultural resource program without you guys. So we'd like to thank each and every one of you.
Thank you.
Good.
Yeah, it's been a great relationship with you guys, really. Thank you. And if you want to go ahead and get the picture.
Yeah, we're going to take one picture here.
So Bear with us.
We'll have them sign that after.
This helps them.
That up.
Thank you. Oh my. Okay.
Things I'm like,
Okay.
Image, right? This is where we're standing pretty much, right here. Start on the right in this photo. That little teeny stock house, whatever there. That was the jail. That was a two-story venture. You can see a little window out of the top. And that was the place you didn't want to be. I mean, you did not want to be in that little jail. They come through every year or two and whitewash the inside. That was how they cleaned it. You know, you could not keep it heated. There's a lot of issues with that building. About 1900, well, 1899, they built a jail in the back of the parking lot here. That jail has its own story to it, but it was built in the dead of winter, and the mortar wouldn't set properly. So everyone from that point on could chisel out with a spoon, get out of the jail with a spoon, and that happened. At one point, they lined the interior cells with quarter-inch steel to keep people from chiseling out of that jail. But there's other stories about that one too. One of the Board of Supervisors drove up in the parking lot and somebody was pulling up a beer on a rope up to the upper floor. You know, that happened. There was another matter. I don't work by remote control, I'm sorry.
Over there. See up there on the screen?
There it is, okay, thank you. I don't like cornering. Okay, I'll figure out how to use it, I guess. But all right, and then this was obviously done in the Civil War. These are the federal troops here, and the photo is attributed to Sergeant Peterman, who was a Union soldier. The next building over from the right is the 1810 courthouse here. Prior to its little portico in the front, you can't really tell it, but there's a road.
Point the red light at
There's a road. You're killing me. All right, so right through here between these buildings is the road that we know out there today. So, you know, it was the Great Warwick Road, it was Warwick Boulevard, and now it's Old Courthouse Way. But, you know, it's a great name for the road, what they did. So it got sort of looped out. But the 1810 courthouse is a special place. It was really teeny. Some of the soldiers that came through said it was the most dilapidated place they've ever seen in their life. You know, and it probably was, and grass growing in the roads and the street. Remember all of that. This building here would be the clerk's office. I guess that's the. This is 1810. This was around 1820, behind that building there, behind the tree, and that was the structure that was raided by the federal forces in 1862. April of '62, they came in and drug the documents out of that courthouse. Strewn them to the wind, used them for campfires, took them home in their backpacks, sent them home. Some of those documents were signed by the agents of King George III. Those documents are gone forever. A little trickle of them have come back to Warwick County over time, but just a small number. Most of those are in the Library of Virginia, but we got digital copies of those documents. Signed by Hellcat Billy Jones and All Britain and a bunch of names we remember from history. But that's pretty sad how that worked out for this county, and that makes our job here as a historical society, you know, quite a bit harder. You know, no records to go back to. So these were the tents, I guess, for that. This building was across the street from the courthouse, and it predated the 1810 courthouse. This is 1734. This was a, what was the term they used? A house of private entertainment. Okay, you take that however you want, but it did mean something different at the time. If it was a tavern and you could stop there and it had a bar, it was a house of public entertainment. This one did not have a bar, apparently, so the Smiths didn't want the bar. It was before the Smiths. It was originally the Dixon Brown House, or, yeah, and that was Stony Run Tavern, 1734. The Smith family, after the Civil War, acquired the property through Chancery Court, whatever, and they were industrious people. They needed a general store built. They sawed this thing in half, and they drug half of that house over to create the general store. If you look across the street today, the concrete curb for that store is still there on the property. And they built another building too, but anyway, that was sawed in half. What was left of the left side of it was converted back to a home, and the Smiths lived in that old 1734 house, you know, for a good number of years. It was torn down about 2004. It was a liability hazard. It was falling down. I guess it was pretty rotten, but Sarah Smith sold or had people come in to take it down, and they didn't charge her. They wanted the beams and all the good wood out of it, you know, the old stuff. And then the rest of it got torn down in 2004. So 1734 to 2004, it had a good run. So at least part of it did. The store over there burned down in 1955. Was it suspicious circumstances? Maybe. I think Henry Smith was tired of running a store. That might have been part of it. But the store burned down. They bulldozed it all into the woods back there, and we have come up with bottle after bottle after bottle, horseshoes, all that stuff was there. In its heyday, the Stony Run Tavern was I don't know if you call it the railhead. It wouldn't be the railhead, but the station for the stagecoach that ran through here. So the stagecoach would have left out, it actually stopped every day at the back door of that tavern, and it would have, back to the west, it would go by Rich Neck Plantation. So it would go through where Kmart parking lot was and go back through there. You know, there was no interstate or railroad there at the time, so it was an old stagecoach road. Some story I heard one time was George Washington rode down that road coming up to see Sally Carey, or was it Sally Carey, at Pear Tree Hall. So that was its fame. So maybe we should try another slide here. Anybody have anything to add on that?
Yeah, Darcy, don't you and Cheryl live where the soldier is on the horse?
Yeah, we live across the street here. We live in the little property there. Bought it from Sarah Smith. So, and fixed it. Everything on that house needed fixing. Everything. All right, so here's our 1810 courthouse. I like this one. I have no idea what the building to the right was. I have no idea what that was. No, that came a lot later. The Olivet Church came in the 40s, 1940s. So this is, from the best I can figure, and there's one clue in here which gives me a date. The Virginia State Library has it as 1920 something, right? But there was a jail built in the back. And if you look on the left side, that looks like the foundations of that jail getting built. This would be 1899 here. So they had started building that jail there, and it used to be a wrought iron fence across all of this property, and that was gone, I believe, 1920s or by 1937 or something like that. I think it was who was the group that did it? The Coastal Conservation people or something? Yes. Came in and built the brick wall that we have now. So the brick wall outlines the last acre of Warwick County. So we're standing in Warwick County right now. Works Progress did it. Okay. And I joked with the, used to be the assistant chief of police. I said, you know, we're in Warwick County here. You have no jurisdiction here. She said, you want to bet? So, okay. So this is where we are, and I believe that is the beginnings of the 1899 jail right there. All right, and there it is a little closer. Looks like to me, and nothing else would have been there, so that had to be the beginnings of the jail. All right, here's an old one. This is probably about 1890. Sound about right? 1890, and I do not know who the kid is. His name is somewhere. I do have his name somewhere, but a kid and his dog. Here's another one. About 1890.
Ed Light.
Ed Light was the horse. Yeah, we know the horse's name, Ed Light, and I do have the gentleman's name somewhere too. But they horse racing was a big thing around here, so they had tournaments and jousts and horse racing events and all of that here, and horses like that were valuable, were very respected. So.
Is that the courthouse? Darcy, can you use the microphone? Go use the microphone.
Sorry?
Do you mind using the microphone? Use the microphone.
Oh, use the mic. Okay, that's right.
Are you just listening? You want me to do your slides?
No, I got it, sorry. We're just winging it here, so. So anyway, this is courthouse was the gathering place. And across the street from this courthouse was another gathering place. You guys can probably tell me what. The Smith Hotel was across the street. It was built at the same time as this courthouse, and it was the Smiths, Levin Smith, who built it, was a businessman. He saw the railroad coming through. He knew the courthouse was going to be built. Perfect timing to build a hotel there. So the hotel housed the judges and the juries and the witnesses and everything that came to court every couple of months when the circuit would rotate. So the circuit court there. So he was a smart businessman. He put that hotel there. They say the poker games in that place were ridiculous. They were ongoing all the time. It was a community gathering place, especially when political season came around. The candidates would all, meet there. At one point, I had an article in the newsletter about there was a near fist fight, a political fist fight at the hotel across the street. Let me see if we can move on this. Yeah, there it is again with the wrought iron fence and tall grass. These are the latest fashions from the 1960 Dimby Day that was out there. These were bathing suits. I think John Curry said you had enough for a bathing suit and you can make some curtains as well. So those were bathing suits, or I don't think they all were, but that one looks like it. Anyway, so there's a lot of history around this courthouse. An ancient thing that happened here was court day. They used to, every 2 months or whatever, when the court would come around, everybody descended here. And, hundreds of people would be here on court days. And lots of shenanigans. So here's an overview. This is from Mr. Histan's photo collection. And point out a few things. That's Leggett and Jones service station. Was there in 1948. This is 1948. And the Curtis Oil Building is still there today. It has that tile roof, that terracotta tile roof there. That was originally a Standard Oil 1920s building, and of course they shortened SO to be Esso, Esso gas station. So that was Esso. Later across the street over here was a Texaco. That's gone, or it's there. It's not Texaco. And then this was the Smith Hotel. It was 3 stories. The living space for the family was on the top floor. It had the upper balcony here that was open. 16 rooms there. The story of the Smith family were a bunch of practical jokers as well. But the kids were chasing a goat around that upper floor up there, and the goat just jumped off the edge and it went down. And apparently the goat lived. I'm sure they ate it later, but it lived. This 2 buildings here were the store I talked about. So that's the other half of the Stony Run Tavern. That's the one they built, which is long and deep. One was hardware, one was grocery there. So I believe the hardware store was this small one, this was the grocery store. And you would push shopping carts down the aisles in there. But it doesn't seem big enough. This was what was left of the Stony Run Tavern. That was the one that stayed until 2004. This is the modern house there, 1930. And a 1930 garage, which was just big enough to get a car in. That's all you could do with it. And that is the house that I reside in now. It's much nicer now. The old Warwick Courthouse, 1884 courthouse, and there was the jail with the problem with the mortar. And there's the 1810 courthouse. The 1810 courthouse had additions built on it over the years, so it looks a little different here. In the 90s, Michael Poplawski led the effort, I think, to return that 1810 courthouse to its original footprint. So it's a T-shaped courthouse, which it would have been in 1810. So it's back to where it was, and now that it's all painted, we can just time travel back to 1810 over there. It looks brand new.
Darcy, what's this building out here at the rear of the building when you go out?
Which one here?
Right behind us when we go out.
Right behind us when we go, the little teeny little storage thing, Mary, what is that? Yeah, right here, the little shack out back. Yeah. So anyway, that's a great shot. This is an old postcard I found, which I love. It's great, from the 1950s, I believe. Warwick Courthouse. The office was full of books and papers, some very old ones that had been written long before the Revolution by King George's officers. A guard was was over them, but I was lucky and got a handful of deeds. I have one written in 1669. Shortly after I got mine, I can't read it, a stop was put to taking any more. So that was 1862, talking about our records that they ran off with. Some of them say, well, we took them up north for safekeeping, you know. Anyway, this was a wonderful day, Warwick Courthouse. This was May Day, May 1st, 1920, out here. So we're 105 years out from that now. Thank you. Sorry, I need a lavalier or something. Anyway, that was May 1st, 1920. They had the maypole here. And there was a parade that day, and this vehicle you can't really see, but that was the lead parade vehicle there. And then these were the Model Ts and whatever. On this side over here is a school bus from 1920. They said the Snydell family owned the biggest farm around here. They were wealthy. What we know as Stony Brook today was the Snydell farm. Snydell Boulevard runs through there. And they were the rich folks. They came out with their cars and whatever. And then they're all in white. And Mary Kay, tell me what was that again?
May Day?
Yeah, May Day. They all dressed in white. It was part of a club or something?
The spring ritual, like you did every year in spring, you did a dance around something called a maypole that started in England. It was something very common, primarily in schools.
Okay, yeah.
Boys and girls had to practice probably a month or more in advance to learn these elaborate steps. Lots of flowers were involved. Someone was crowned the May Queen and wore it because they had a parade too.
So I don't know if you can see behind the maypole is that Smith store was there. And this was 1920, so this was prior to my little house being built. So
they were still doing that in the late 40s.
Late 40s? They were still doing May Day. Mostly at school, right? Or were they coming here? They did it here and at Morrison, I understand.
And even in high schools, they were doing it. Some colleges as well.
That's a nice pencil drawing by Glenn Oder. Did that. Okay. Here's the additions. Here's one of the additions on the back of the 1810 courthouse, or the side there. There was another addition on the back, but that's how they used to enter. There's a piece of the sidewalk left out here that used to lead to that door. So there's still a piece of sidewalk there. We acquired this part of our collection. This was came through Leroy Woody somehow, the old chief of police, whatever. But that's in the 1920s era. And you know, they're not making those anymore, I understand. Yeah, no more Warwick County to make badges for. Some of this epaulettes and whatever.
That microphone, please.
I'm sorry, honey. Okay, I got it.
You don't think it'll fire you.
These are familiar, and I believe, did we get these through Fort Eustis? I think we did. These are coins that came up on Mulberry Island. Yeah, there you go. 1722 halfpenny. I recognize that house.
Never saw it.
That's 5400 Huntington Avenue. Mary Kay acquired it, fixed it. It got donated to the city.
The Harwood House.
Yeah.
The Harwoods, of course, started out living in Butte, and a cousin of the early descendants decided he would make his fortune in downtown in Pioneer, Newport News as a merchant, and so he built a grand estate in the suburb of what would eventually become North End after he and his wife retired from business. W.W. Harwood and his wife lived here for almost 40 years.
It was one elegant home inside. Really elegant.
It was, yes.
They had a sleeping porch. I loved it.
6,000 plus square.
I recognize at least two of these gentlemen, three in here. Tom Foster's here with us today. There he is. This was, I think they called this Bells Over America or something like that. At the mark of the 150th year of the Civil War, some of you guys were here, but the 150th year, all of the bells across, well, at Appomattox Courthouse, I think they rang it first, and then around the country, everybody rang every bell they could ring, and we rang the courthouse bell that day. and we had our event, and it was a great day to be here. You missed it. Same thing. This is North and South getting along here. That's Bill Bishop here, and our friend there, Tom Foster. Tom Foster, though, man, dashing, sir. Blunt Point, that's a big point of history around here. Humphrey Blunt was swimming out to, was it?
And he was trying to recover a boat that
A longboat or something.
had broken away from another boat that was
I'm deferring to the expert who knows all about Blunt Point there. She had a series of articles years ago that just defined Blunt Point for everybody, and we had a historical marker placed as a society. So that's Beverly Hills neighborhood? Mm-hmm. Beverly Hills, at the entrance to Beverly Hills neighborhood in Newport News. And quite an event that day. Recognize this girl right here. That's Gloria. And she is next to her daddy's vegetable garden that was out there. And now the entrance to Beverly Hills runs right through there. So.
And that's our dog, Betty.
That's your dog. And that is not Henry. I've mistaken that for years, but that's not Henry. I called it Henry. Okay. Another Smith family, Benjamin Percival Smith, owned this property. If you left out of here and went right and go across the light, you stay on Old Courthouse Way, go behind the mall over there. It was down on your left just before you get to the Denby School. This was what Old Denby really kind of was, but this is turn of the century, 1905, something like that. And that was what Warwick and Denby looked like back then. But these were the rich folks, had a beautiful home there. And the definition of the word hotel sort of varied back then. You know, you'd stay in a private home and they'd call it a hotel, sort of. So that was a hotel there. Benjamin Smith also had a general store that was right there on that property. And it also burned down under mysterious circumstances. So two Smith stores. And there it was in 1960 or so. So it went from this to that in a number of years. Look at how overgrown that was. Yeah, a little yard work needed. But then they plowed it all under, and I don't know, it's close to about where Dino's Pizza sits now. So it's gone. The place is gone. Briggs Grocery, that's in the newsletter too. Vernon Briggs, he opened the store, and it was a chain at the time, Pender Grocery Store, whatever, and Pender pulled out and they only wanted larger stores, so he just went independent. He never could get, well he did eventually. When he first got here, he was the new guy and he was a come here, he didn't come from here. The people wouldn't really patronize the store all that much, but then there was a big car accident outside of his store, and he and his wife took care of those people very well and sort of endeared themselves to this area. And so Briggs Grocery went on for years and years and was only torn down when they put the Warwick Denby Shopping Center in. So this was on the left just after you get through the light there. Oh, interesting. Okay. Original James River Bridge. When was that, 1925 or so, I believe?
28.
28 came through? So that was part of the original. Okay, you guys, little road trip in your mind again. Go out to Warwick Boulevard down here and turn left and go down to Beachmont Drive. Beachmont Drive is right there. The corner of Beachmont and Warwick was the poorhouse. That's the alms house, they called it. So the county would would provide funds to stock it. They would use Smith's store here to stock it with food and whatever. And people would go there and work, whatever. And then when they passed away, Potter's Field was right next to it. And a lot of them were interred there. A lot of them never had markers, that kind of thing. So Potter's Field is from Mr. Curry, I think, was the driving force on that. Mr. Curry used to be the president of this group when it was FEHA, Fort Eustis Historical. So anyway, he was the driving force there. I have no idea what that is right now. That tree, familiar?
Oh, yeah.
That's Rich Neck Plantation area. That would be where McIntosh Elementary School sits now. And that was the original charter hackberry, I call it, but charter elm for the city of Newport News that is on the seal, the city seal of Newport News. That was the tree. And story is back when they didn't have a courthouse here, they met at individual family, the clerk's house. And one of the clerks was Miles Carey, Miles Carey II. And they would meet under that tree and hold court sessions at the time. Warwick always went its own way. They didn't, go ahead.
We have a piece of it over at the courthouse.
We have a piece of it. We do. We actually have a piece of the tree.
Somewhere.
It's in storage now. It's in storage. We were going to chop that up into little pieces and wrap a ribbon around and sell them to everybody. So you guys want a piece of the tree? We can do that. Anyway, that's at Rich Neck Plantation. And the tree that's there now is the second generation of it? Third? Okay. So they've kept it going. Anybody remember that?
Yep.
My mom had a 69 Cougar, and she hit that trade track so much, I think it came off the ground when we were kids. So when you used to go across Oyster Point Road, it was a big elevated train crossing, and we always had fun with that. All right. Camp Patrick Henry, Virginia, was an embarkation point for troops going overseas. They would arrive by train. There was a spur line that came off of the railroad and ran up where basically Mary Immaculate Hospital is. So a spur line came off, and there was a piece of that in the woods when we were kids. The tracks were gone, but you could see where it came through. And they would drop off the soldiers at Camp Patrick Henry. I like to say wine and dine them, feed them steak. They went to nightclubs. They had fun. Anything they needed, they had. And then they marched down to downtown Newport News and got on the Liberty ships or whatever and headed off for Europe. And many of them did not come back. They did a one-way trip. But the ones who did come back came right back to Camp Patrick Henry and wined and dined again before they were sent home on trains. So we had a member of FEHA, he's passed several years ago, Mr. Burke, who was at Camp Patrick Henry basically when it opened. He said he pulled into the concrete drive. They had a concrete drive, but you couldn't see it. He said if you got off of the side of it at all, it was mud. You would sink in it. You'd be gone, in the mud. But they created this camp here, and the outline of it is basically still there. Some of the aerial photos, I can see perfectly where all of this was. But this guide would show you where everything was, laundry and whatever. So welcome to Camp Patrick Henry. Okay. On Mulberry Island, this was the Crawford house. And the Crawford family, the Crawfords, went back many generations here. That particular piece of property where that sat was pretty ancient anyway. It was a ferry boat site. It was colonial era. I mean, it was a beautiful piece of property. And it looks right out over the James River, just beautiful there. In the Civil War, they dug entrenchments all around this property, like 30-foot high earthen walls all around the Crawford house, and that became Fort Crawford. And Fort Crawford is on Mulberry Island now. You can't visit it. I mean, they'll shoot you if you go. But one of the things we talked about is possibly some tours over there too, so we'll keep in mind for that. I'm looking back at the Fort Eustis folks. But, so possibly we can do a tour and we can go out and see the site of it. It really is pretty cool to get out there and look at. The bricks from that property, the house was torn down in the 1920s, and they reused the bricks to rebuild the Wren building in William & Mary College. So those old bricks were valuable to them. There's still a few there. There's still a foundation there. This was corner, right up here to the light on the right where the 7-Eleven is. This is where this was. There was no Denby Boulevard at the time, so it just went straight through, but that was the Curtis family home, or Lucas, I think it was Curtis family home. In the backyard, they had another building. That was the original school for the school children around here, and that behind that house. So I believe they picked that school building up and moved it at one point as well, but there's tales of that. Dave Pershowitz. Okay. A group of early people would hide in Possum Hollow over there, and they had a card game going or something, and Bickford's here. He showed up, and they took off running, and one guy was sort of short and a little stubby, and he was running from Bickford Curtis, and Bickford's chasing him, and he said, "Stop, Shorty, or I'll shoot." And the guy stopped and whatever. Said, "How'd you know my name was Shorty?" He had just guessed. Yeah, it was funny.
He was also an attorney for the shipyard, and he wrote the inscription for the Victory Arch.
Very nice, Steve. I'm learning something today. Thank you. I'm trying to think of some of the other things he did.
He was a 1925 football stand-up.
He was a football player, and he got injured or something. Got injured, and he had to follow in his father's footsteps, and they swore him in before he was eligible to be sworn in, but nobody cared. And they made him sheriff when he was too young. So he was 20 years the sheriff of Warwick County. He knew every family. He knew where people were supposed to be at a certain time of the day. He knew their children's names. He knew everything. And in the Smith Hotel, they had a party line switchboard thing. He had worked it out with the switchboard operators to let them know what they overheard. And he was on top of things in a way that surprised a lot of people. How did you know that? Whatever. He was on top of things, and they asked him how was he so effective on fighting crime in the county. He said, "Man, you just got to get there before it happens." That's all he said. So, he was funny. Okay, Red Johnson's service station. All right, another road trip. Go out and turn right on Old Courthouse Way, go down to the light. Straight across the street on the corner, across from 7-Eleven, was Red Johnson's mobile station. Was there for a long, long time. You'll read it in the newsletter, but he said when he first showed up there were cows there. He had to put up a fence out back to keep the cows out of his service station. And he said he'd sold more gas for tractors and things than he did for cars back in the day when he started. But he was a hard worker, and if you want to talk about a Warwick County prankster, this guy, he would call, because you could see it from his shop, he would call from his service station to Leggett and Jones and tell them, "Hey, watch this." And right about that time, the light on the side of the building would get shot out from down here. They would, with his rifle, he would shoot out the light on the Leggett and Jones service station. So they were buddies. There was also an incident involving a mule. All right, quickly I'll tell you, you guys have all heard this before, but not some of the new ones. A mule fell over dead in Denby. This is the story. I don't think it's actually true. I don't know, but a mule fell over dead in Denby. The story is Red Johnson shot it, but it fell over dead in Denby nonetheless. And it laid there, and it laid there, and it laid there in the hot sun. And before long, it didn't smell very good. It was atrocious. And the citizens of Denby were a little upset about it after a while. And the story is they called the police, but the mule didn't commit any crimes. It wasn't on fire, so the fire department couldn't help. It wasn't a dog, the dog catcher couldn't help. So nothing happened with it, and it laid there still. And they called to the city manager's office, and still nothing happened. So they got a little upset about it, loaded it on a truck, and took it down and dumped it on the lawn of the city manager. And city manager's name was J. Clyde Morris. That was that story. Henry the Mule. I have a whole poem about Henry the Mule. All right, there's the Smith Hotel, a better view. That's 1976, I understand. This photo is 1976. By 1985, it was falling down. How that happened so fast, I don't know. But it took a very photogenic picture, but in reality, the porch roof was rotting and all of that. and the city had a problem with it after a while. It had structural conditions about it. The city kind of came down on Mr. Morton, Wilbur Carey Smith Morton's husband, and he didn't like dealing with the city. He was a little stubborn about things, and they had a dispute over it, and before long, bulldozers came and it was down. So November of 1985, it got torn down. It was built in 1883, so 102 years. And this is where they had the political meetings and the poker games and the dining hall and all of that. When they dedicated the monument in 1909, they said 200 or 300 people, 150 people were on the porch of that thing because it was raining that day. So everybody was on the porch of the hotel waiting for the dedication of the monument. And then you can see in the dedication photos of the monument, water everywhere, it's rain, it was a terrible day. They did it. And there it is, there you see it. This is probably the last photo, at least the last one I know of the Smith Hotel, and you can see the rot in the center of the porch. It was a lot worse than I think what we see here too. That wall, pieces of that wall are still there. Mr. Morton had it torn down and never looked back. I don't think he ever visited the property ever again. Definitely never cut any grass. It grew up crazy. So, and the gentleman on the porch in the white t-shirt there, or white shirt, is telling the other man how to pick a good watermelon, I would think, right? That gentleman is Henry Smith. Henry Curtis Smith ran the Smith store across the street, where the curb is still there. But that was Henry Smith. He was a bit of a prankster too, you understand. And his brother Wilbur Smith is this family. Wilbur Smith built the house that I live in across the street. They said as a young boy he was a prankster, whatever. He would take things from the Smith store and go down to the railroad station at Oriana and sell them for half price and then make money. All right, and there we go. It's a good view of the Smith store, the Stony Run Tavern, the house that's there now. The building in the back, the little small one, is Cheryl's She Shed right now. So, but that's 1930 as well. All right, that was the card they sent out. Okay, reconciliation right here in Warwick Courthouse. Look at that, North and South coming together. That's me. In 2011, I guess, it seemed like it was, I guess that's about right. This plaque was to Confederate women. And no matter what you think about the war and whatever, Confederate women suffered during that. Their husbands went off to war and never came back, everything they knew. So whatever, but there was a plaque done for them. I understand it was the first time the Confederate seal was ever carved into stone. So that's that. It was stored in the Victory Arch and had been forgotten. Prior to that, it was in the courthouse downtown in Newport News for years. And when that building was torn down, it was put into storage and stayed there for decades. And someone came to me and said, hey, that's down there. Should we try to get it? I got permission. I asked Director Poplawski. We went down to the Victory Arch and got the monument. Between us, we stopped at the car wash and washed it. It was terrible. And then brought it here for safekeeping, and it is on the wall, right through there. That is the monument there. Anyway, that's an interesting piece of history.
Just a good thing.
Mary Kay, tell me about the casino grounds.
This is downtown Newport News. In the early years, Newport News was built by the Chesapeake and Ohio Railway as a resort destination, similar to Buckrow. And one of the amenities, one of the things you could do besides bathing on the beach was to go to the casino park, where they had activities like cycling and picnicking, photography, and they had this building called the casino where you bowl and have dances. And it was a very elaborate brick structure, Chautauqua style building, and you can see some of the paths there for the cycling. Right in the center is the trolley out on that to the end of the pier. And look at the ship out there with the massive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mary, do you know when that park was demolished?
This is over pretty soon, guys. We're almost done.
West Avenue is part of the West Avenue Park that is being combined, what was Christopher Newport Park, and now it's being connected by something called the Strand with Victory Landing Park. So it's still there.
I mean, like the casino and all.
Although the casino was demolished, I don't know exactly, I don't have to look that up for you, but for the anniversary of Jamestown, they created Christopher Newport Park, a more formal park with gates, benches, and so all those structures that were there would have come down. Actually, I think they came down earlier than that because part of that land was used during the World Wars for the port of embarkation headquarters and buildings. So I think they were gone before then. But Christopher Newport Park replaced it. A former fountain was put in there that would represent the freshwater springs at Point Hope where the colonists had come to refresh themselves on the expeditions here. Very, as I say, very formal style park. And I don't know how much of that we're going to maintain when they create the unified park. I would like to think probably some of that's going to go. But I have photos.
So Warwick County knew how to party back then, 1911. Watermelon. 4th of July. Who remembers that? I missed that. All right, same guy. Seen that. Escaped prisoners, City of Newport News, 1920s. Don't know anything about it. All right. Warwick will have a jail. B.F. Smith Fireproof and Construction Company of Washington, and awarded it to a contract for the jail building to cost $8,000. Well, they cut some corners on the mortar, didn't they? This was 1899, this article. 2 stories, fireproof, and will be fitted with all the modern conveniences. Accommodate 44 prisons. That was the answer I was looking for before. 44, and they had over 100 in it. Waterview, plantation on Mulberry Island. Most beautiful place. Hopefully I can get Courtney and Patrick to talk about that for us a little bit. It's still remnants of it there, but after the Army had acquired Mulberry Island, created Camp Eustis and then Fort Eustis, that property was still there, and apparently some of these old Warwick County people, Warwickians we call them, would take their little skiffs and go across the Warwick River and go on Fort Eustis when they weren't supposed to, and go to Waterview Plantation House where they had a still going. They were making moonshine from it. The commanding officer out there, I understand, said, this is artillery training place. All we need to do is to lower that artillery just a little bit. We'll take care of it. Where eventually it was taken down. I don't think by that means, but was it bombed in the end?
I don't know exactly. I mean, it's just a pile of rubble now.
It's a pile of rubble now. Something happened to it. It was a beautiful home. It'd be a great talk. This is something, that's Fred Bolt. We've talked about a couple times today. War of 1812. I don't even remember much about that. We did it, but all right, guys, that was what I had on the little slideshow. Pro-consolidationist. He wanted the City of Newport News to be created. A lot of his friends and people, family around him didn't want that. I mean, vehemently didn't want that. We talked about the consolidation thing. I think most people were practical. They didn't want to be in a backwards county with nothing going on. They liked the idea of a big city thing. So when the vote came to happen, the farmers up here did not have the numbers to change it. So it went into consolidation, but there was many Warwickians who were mad as hens over it. And if they were alive, they'd still be mad about it. Never going to do it. But the sheriff of Warwick County was a pro-consolidationist, and I forgive him. He's fine. This was in the jail that set out back, the one with the mortar damage, and the sheriff and the gentleman standing up is Carey, C-A-R-E-Y, was his last name. Gordon, I believe, was his name. I do not remember the name of the sheriff sitting there, or deputy sheriff or whatever he was. That was the inside of that old building. And here's the big aerial. We've seen this already. Where would that be? It ain't around here. That's Denbighshire, North Wales. That's where our name originated here. Denbighshire. So there's a castle on the top of the hill. It had already been demolished and rebuilt, and now demolished again there. So by 1280, that castle was there. And the story is, and I don't know how of the truth of this, but Samuel Matthews came to the New World. He was from Denbighshire, North Wales. He established his home was Matthews Manor, which is down by Riverview Farm Park. Later, when the Diggs family acquired the property, they changed the name to Denby Plantation. And that's where Denby Plantation neighborhood is today. So, the original flyer. That is the original flyer. I must tell a tale that I probably shouldn't tell, but in the planning documents for the very first Denby Day, blacks were discouraged from coming. I mean, I just got to say that. It's how it happened back then. They got delivered to everybody's mailbox that wasn't black. I'm sorry about that, but that was 1960. So anyway, that was the first sort of organized Denby Day. The lady who lived in the Smith Hotel was Wilbur Carey Smith, later Morton. She was the one who did most of the organizing for the first Denby Day parade. And it still goes. The city took it over. The city does Denby Day now. Just up until a couple of years ago, they took over. But it goes way back. And the old Denby Day, I loved. I mean, when it was, a community thing and people just brought whatever they had out there. They sell ice cream. They had nail driving contest, things like that. It was interesting. Horses, all kinds of things. But it really was a slice of Denby when that would go by every year out there. And it diminished over time. It just wasn't as fun after a while. And I tried to bring it back a couple times. I was really into it, for a while. Once the city took it, there's nothing for me to do anymore. So,
What year was that?
This was 1960. The very first one, 1960. But they had court days there 100 years before then. So, the court days went back, and this is in a way a continuation of what they'd already done. There it is. So it was a big event. That was a big event in Denby there. And you can kind of see the courthouse in the background there. And they're right about where Leggett and Jones service station is. So thousands would come out for Denby Day. I think I have some other photos that are crowded like that as well. So lots of cool things. All right, there it is. They tore that jail down in the back parking lot here in 1960 as well. And that was the hardened part they had trouble tearing down, I guess.
That's across the street then.
It was in the parking lot, back here in this parking lot where we are.
So that wall's still there, right?
Yeah, at the very back. You see the wall at the back there, and that's where the jail sat. One of our members said that she went there as a little girl. Went to jail as a little girl, and I said, "What'd you do?" And she was like, "I didn't do anything, I was just there." But she visited the jail and went in the kitchen part of it, and the first time she'd ever had chitlins in her life. She said last time too, never have them again. But she was sweet. What was her name again? Marilyn Ware. Marilyn Ware. Yeah, she's great. And there it is being torn down, so you can get an idea of what it looked like. They said it was built to house 8, 12, and they had like 100 in it. It was overcrowded, terrible. The state had come in and condemned it, and then they waited, and Warwick County supervisors were, I don't know if they're smart or not, but they waited. They were miserly. They waited until the city took over and let the city pay to take the jail down. So that's what they did there. So, all right, and there's the jail in its full glory, sitting at the back of the parking lot here. They used to let the prisoners sit in the yard out in front. Most of them were in there for prohibition type things, drinking and whatever. But they'd let them sit in the yard during the day because it was so overcrowded there. And then if you go where Olivet Church is over here and go down the hill, that was called Catfish Hole. You go in there and fish, they get their dinner there. One gentleman was a brick mason. This is a different story. He was a brick mason. He was in the jail for drinking, whatever, disorderly conduct, whatever. He got out of his cell somehow, got down, the sheriff wasn't there, got an old ball and chain, beat his way through the wall, and left a note for the sheriff. And the note said, "I got thirsty." The sheriff went and tracked him down at his house, and he was 3 sheets to the wind, of course, whatever. They brought him back, and the next day, with his skills as a mason, he was required to put that wall back like it was, and he said built it a lot better than it was the first time. So that part of the wall was strong, but the rest of it wasn't. Anyway, what an interesting place there. I have a full resolution photo of this, and if you zoom in on that upper left window, there's somebody standing there looking out at it. It's creepy. It is so creepy. And that's old Warwick County, with the little teeny Newport News down at the end. The county seat was Denby, right here where we are. Newport News, depending on the year, was a fishing village. There was just a few homes there. George West's farm was there for sure. And Warwick County was the big one. Of course, Warwick County was one of the original 8 shires from the Crown, and the smallest of all of them. And then Mulberry Island has gone off to be Fort Eustis now. Is that part of Newport News still? It's sort of not, but anyway, that was the original Warwick County. And you see that Stony Run Hill, that's where we are. This courthouse is here and the other courthouse is here because this is high ground. This is the highest ground around. I mean, maybe elevation of 30 feet or something, but we're high ground. All right, that used to sit out front. And they used to come and rededicate it every year and place flowers on it. The woman there is Fanny Jones. Her father was Henry Francis Jones. Her father or her grandfather, I believe her father, was Henry Francis Jones. She was there with George DeShazier, the well-known clerk of courts for Warwick County for many years, decades. George DeShazier was a great guy. Anyway, they're laying a reef on the, what year was that thing?
1909.
Thank you, ma'am. It escaped me. The 1909 monument got taken down in 2020. 2020. It was moved to storage at Newport News Park. Then I believe it's been sold off. Now it's been sold and it's going to Shenandoah Valley. It will be in a monument park in Shenandoah Valley. We'll leave all the other comments out of that.
Or just given away to families.
I don't know. All right, well, here lies George Johnson, hanged by mistake in 1882. He was right, we were wrong, but we strung him up and now he's gone. I don't know why that's there. At peaceful rest lies Brother Claude, planted here beneath the sod. Okay, this is an interesting camera, would you say? 27 pounds. That camera was a World War II surplus aerial reconnaissance camera. The gentleman standing with me is James Histan Jr. He came from Arizona and brought that camera in a case with him. That camera was used by his father from 1946 to 1965 doing aerial photographs over this area. We acquired the entire collection. Those photos had sat in an attic in Surprise, Arizona. Surprise or Sunrise? Anyway, Surprise, Arizona, I believe. And they were in the attic, and the negatives just really took a hit from all of that, curled up and just terrible. But we have about 2,000 altogether negatives and printed photos. And they are, the resolution, you can't beat them. From that camera, it really, really worked well. And we've got high-res images of Newport News, Denby, York County, even over to Norfolk, Virginia Beach, the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel when it's being built. The Coleman Bridge was there, and in some photos is not there, right? So Gloucester Point and all that in Yorktown without the bridge and then with the bridge. So Mr. Histan did a great service. he ran a store that some of you might remember called the Wood Box. It was in the Sherwood Shopping Center. Back when it was an indoor mall, you could walk in, there was a fountain and a little thing in there. Then they rebuilt the Sherwood Shopping Center to an outdoor mall. He was in there for a short while, and then he moved up to we called it Piccadilly Circus, but it's a group of buildings right close by here anyway. Across from the post office down here. The multicolored buildings, so the Wood Box was there for years. That was his family's business, and then he also did the photography thing. So he took a lot of portraits of little kids and graduations and Denby Baptist Church. He was a member there, so we got a lot of those photos. We have pictures of his dogs, you know, we have everything that he had, but the aerial photographs are stunning, absolutely stunning. We've got them, we want to show them to everybody. It's just so much, you've got to have hours to see them, but you know, maybe we'll do that some. There's Henry in the middle, our Vice President Henry Pylan, his wife Dale. That's Sherry. That's Sherry. That was a Denby Day one year. Burkholder Dairy. Down Lucas Creek Road, past Colony Road on the right. There's remnants of it still there. Burkholder Dairy. There. Nelson Burkholder, he wrote a book. It's very interesting read. So if you can find Nelson Burkholder's book, you'll enjoy reading it. Good. I can't remember what else in it, but City of Warwick. These are just a hodgepodge of things. Mary Kay, tell us about this picture.
Well, that is the earliest image of the Lee Hall Depot. You can see it's just a central portion of the building at the time. A couple ladies are sitting on the stoop there in winter or tired, so that's why or at least they're wearing furs or cold weather gear, so we believe it's in the winter. We would have the station agent's office downstairs and living quarters above.
Nowadays, if you looked at it, you might see a roof line about like this on the building. They built on the north and south wings of it, or east and west wings. Old man Jack Lucas's house is what this one supposedly is. I haven't really verified that, but that's what I was told. Old man Jack Lucas's house in Lucas Creek Road, named after him. This is just a picture I had in my own collection at home. A couple of my high school friends. This is Denby High School, but in the background is why I have this picture. This was Lucy Crawford's home that was there. The story with Lucy Crawford is she lived at Mulberry Island. 1918, the U.S. government took it over, and everyone had 30 days to move. One of the stories I remember about Lucy Crawford is she drove her herd of cattle across the Warwick River, made them swim over here. So the cattle swam to Denby. You probably won't ever see that happen ever again. But anyway, I understand when that house came down, they took it down board by board because it had valuable lumber. That's Mariah Whitaker Curtis that Don was talking about earlier. She was a lovely lady. This is her in her later years. But as a younger woman, wow, you know. Anyway, she, after the Civil War, her husband was Dr. Captain Humphrey Harwood Curtis of Enview Plantation. After the Civil War, during the Civil War, they used Enview Plantation as a hospital, and they would cater to Union and Confederate forces there. And then she went on to Lebanon Church and did all she did. That is nothing. We were trying to come up with like a little garden around our tree out there. Thomas Mary's Mary Point is what I understood this picture to be. Verified, Gloria, at all?
I don't know that it was Thomas Mary's. That would have been from the 1600s.
That's what I had heard that photo was, but...
Macintosh House.
Okay, Macintosh House? Okay. Think of her name.
Betty Young.
Betty Young, from the Youngs of Denby Plantation, Young's Mill. That she was a character, I guess, in herself. But. And we thought that was a painting. We had an image of this that was a painting, but it came back to us as photographs, so somebody made a painting from it. Okay, for sale, real estate on Railroad near Newport News, one water-powered grist mill, one farm of 500, I guess that is 900, one of 500, one of 365, and one of 150 acres of land for sale by owner, Daniel Selden Jones. That's his name, Lee Hall. Just find little pieces here. All right, there you go. Read that one yourself. She talked herself to death. And another one says, I told you my feet were killing me. All right, so back to that image. Morrison Station.
Oyster Point.
Oyster Point. Oyster Point Station.
That's not the station, that is the general store and post office.
Thank you. Glad to have you here today. Keep me straight. Yeah, that was old Denby and, old Warwick County there.
See the dog on the porch? We're sitting in the front yard.
No.
One old screen doors, double screen doors, and
Okay.
they would have those push bars on them.
Yeah.
But there's all kind of stuff for sale out there on the front porch.
Let's get this straight. This is not Pear Tree Hall. Or is it? Is this Cam's?
That's not Lee.
It's not Cam's?
Not Lee, no. So it may be Pear Tree.
It may be Pear Tree Hall. The homes look so similar to each other. There's a very little small difference between Pear Tree Hall and a home that was called Cam's. And we did an article not long ago about it. The Glebe. Yeah. Okay. So the door that you'd fall out of the top, it used to have porches and all that and balconies and whatever, and they were ripped off for campfires for the Civil War soldiers. So I'm sure that house sat like that a long time. Oh, there's Robert Bickford Curtis. There's the sheriff of Warwick County. He would pull up to a place and he always said the same thing, Bickford's here. And if you were the criminal element, you ran at that point, right? But there was a lot of funny stories about Bickford Curtis. Let me think of a good one. He came across, he called it a gambling ring, or someone did. But it was just guys playing cards or whatever. And it was at Possum Hollow. Possum Hollow is where Kmart is now. Used to be. Kmart's gone. Possum Hollow is gone too. But it was so thick you couldn't get through. And people would hide in Possum Hollow over there. And they had a card game going or something, and Bickford's here. He showed up. And they took off running. And one guy was sort of short and a little stubby, and he was running from Bickford Curtis, and Bickford's chasing him. And he said, "Stop, Shorty, or I'll shoot." And the guy stopped and whatever. Said, "How'd you know my name was Shorty?" He had just guessed. Yeah, it was funny.
He was also an attorney for the shipyard, and he wrote the inscription for the Victory Arch.
Very nice. See, I'm learning something today. Thank you. I'm trying to think of some of the other things he did.
He was a 1925 football stand-up.
He was a football player, and he got injured or something. Got injured, and he had to follow in his father's footsteps, and they swore him in before he was eligible to be sworn in, but nobody cared. And they made him sheriff when he was too young. So he was 20 years the sheriff of Warwick County. He knew every family. He knew where people were supposed to be at a certain time of the day. He knew their children's names. He knew everything. And in the Smith Hotel, they had a party line switchboard thing. He had worked it out with the switchboard operators to let them know what they overheard. And he was on top of things in a way that surprised a lot of people. How did you know that? Whatever. He was on top of things. And they asked him how was he so effective on fighting crime in the county. He says, "Man, you just got to get there before it happens." That's all he said. Yeah. He was funny. Okay, Red Johnson's service station. All right, another road trip. Go out and turn right on Old Courthouse Way, go down to the light, straight across the street on the corner, across from 7-Eleven, was Red Johnson's mobile station was there for a long, long time. You'll read it in the newsletter, but he said when he first showed up there were cows there. He had to put up a fence out back to keep the cows out of his service station. And he said he'd sold more gas for tractors and things than he did for cars back in the day when he started. But he was a hard worker, and if you want to talk about a Warwick County prankster, this guy, he would call, because you could see it from his shop, he would call from his service station to Leggett and Jones and tell them, hey, watch this. And right about that time, the light on the side of the building would get shot out from from down here. They would, with his rifle, he would shoot out the light on the Leggett and Jones service station. So they were buddies. There was also an incident involving a mule. All right, quickly I'll tell you, you guys have all heard this before, but not some of the new ones. A mule fell over dead in Denby. This is the story. I don't think it's actually true. I don't know, but a mule fell over dead in Denby. The story is Red Johnson shot it, but it fell over dead in Denby nonetheless. And it laid there, and it laid there, and it laid there in the hot sun. And before long, it didn't smell very good. It was atrocious. And the citizens of Denby were a little upset about it after a while. And the story is they called the police, but the mule didn't commit any crimes. It wasn't on fire, so the fire department couldn't help. It wasn't a dog, the dog catcher couldn't help. So nothing happened with it, and it laid there still. And they called to the city manager's office, and still nothing happened. So they got a little upset about it, loaded it on a truck, and took it down and dumped it on the lawn of the city manager. And city manager's name was J. Clyde Morris. That was that story. Henry the Mule. I have a whole poem about Henry the Mule. All right, there's the Smith Hotel, a better view. That's 1976, I understand. This photo is 1976. By 1985, it was falling down. How that happened so fast, I don't know. But it took a very photogenic picture, but in reality, the porch roof was rotting and all of that. And the city had a problem with it after a while. It had structural conditions about it. The city kind of came down on Mr. Morton, Wilbur Carey Smith Morton's husband, and he didn't like dealing with the city. He was a little stubborn about things, and they had a dispute over it. And before long, bulldozers came and it was down. So November of 1985, it got torn down. It was built in 1883, so 102 years. And this is where they had the political meetings and the poker games and the dining hall and all of that. When they dedicated the monument in 1909, they said 200 or 300 people, 150 people were on the porch of that thing because it was raining that day. So everybody was on the porch of the hotel waiting for the dedication of the monument. And then you can see in the dedication photos of the monument, water everywhere, it's rain, it was a terrible day. They did it. And there it is, there you see it. This is probably the last photo, at least the last one I know of the Smith Hotel, and you can see the rot in the center of the porch. It was a lot worse than I think what we see here too. That wall, pieces of that wall are still there. Mr. Morton had it torn down and never looked back. I don't think he ever visited the property ever again. Definitely never cut any grass. It grew up crazy. And the gentleman on the porch in the white t-shirt there, or white shirt, is telling the other man how to pick a good watermelon, I would think, right? That gentleman is Henry Smith. Henry Curtis Smith ran the Smith store across the street, where the curb is still there. But that was Henry Smith. He was a bit of a prankster too, you understand? And his brother Wilbur Smith is this family. Wilbur Smith built the house that I live in across the street. They said as a young boy he was a prankster, whatever. He would take things from the Smith store and go down to the railroad station at Oriana and sell them for half price and then make money. All right, and there we go. It's a good view of the Smith store, the Stony Run Tavern, the house that's there now, The building in the back, the little small one, is Cheryl's She Shed right now, so. But that's 1930 as well. All right, that was the card they sent out. Okay. Reconciliation right here in Warwick Courthouse. Look at that. North and South coming together. That's me. In 2011, I guess, it seemed like it was, I guess that's about right. This plaque was to Confederate women. And you know, no matter what you think about the war and whatever, Confederate women suffered during that. Their husbands went off to war and never came back, you know, everything they knew. So, whatever, but there was a plaque done for them. I understand it was the first time the Confederate seal was ever carved into stone, so that's that. It was stored in the Victory Arch and had been forgotten. Prior to that, it was in the courthouse downtown in Newport News for years, and when that building was torn down, it was put into storage and stayed there for decades. And someone came to me and said, hey, that's down there, should we try to get it? I got permission. I asked Director Poplowski. We went down to the Victory Arch and got the monument. Between us, we stopped at the car wash and washed it. It was terrible. And then brought it here for safekeeping, and it is on the wall, right through there. That is the monument there. Anyway, that's an interesting piece of history.
Jesse Gunsbury thing.
Mary Kay, tell me about the casino grounds.
This is downtown Newport News. In the early years, Newport News was billed by the Chesapeake and Ohio Railway as a resort destination, similar to Buckrow. And one of the amenities, one of the things you could do besides bathing on the beach was to go to the casino park, where they had activities like cycling and picnicking, photography, and they had this building called the casino where you bowl and have dances. It was a very elaborate brick structure, Chautauqua style building, and you can see some of the paths there for the cycling. Right in the center is the trolley out on that to the end of the pier. And look at the ship out there with the massive steamer. Yeah.
Okay.
Mary, do you know when that park was demolished?
This is over pretty soon, guys. We're almost done.
West Avenue is part of the West Avenue Park that is being combined. Well, it was Christopher Newport Park, and now it's being connected by something called the Strand with Victory Landing Park. So it's still there.
I mean, like the casino hall.
Although the casino was demolished, I don't know exactly. I'll have to look that up for you. But for the anniversary of Jamestown, they created Christopher Newport Park, a more formal park with gates, benches, and so all those structures that were there would have come down. Actually, I think they came down earlier than that because part of that land was used during the World Wars for the port of the embarkation headquarters and buildings. So I think they were gone before then. But Christopher Newport Park replaced it. A former fountain was put in there that would represent the freshwater springs at Point Hope, where the colonists had come to refresh themselves when they're on the expeditions here. Very, as I say, very formal style park. And I don't know how much of that they're going to maintain when they create this unified park. I would like to think probably some of that's coming back. But I have photos.
So, Warwick County knew how to party back then, 1911. Watermelon. 4th of July. Who remembers that? I missed that. All right, same guy. Seen that. Escaped prisoners, City of Newport News, 1920s. Don't know anything about it. All right, Warwick will have a jail. B.F. Smith Fireproof and Construction Company of Washington, and awarded it to a contract for the jail building to cost $8,000. Well, they cut some corners on the mortar, didn't they? This was 1899, this article. 2 stories, fireproof, and will be fitted with all the modern conveniences. Accommodate 44 prisons. That was the answer I was looking for before. 44, and they had over 100 in it. Waterview. plantation on Mulberry Island. Most beautiful place. Hopefully I can get Courtney and Patrick to talk about that for us a little bit. It's still remnants of it there, but after the Army had acquired Mulberry Island, created Camp Eustis and then Fort Eustis, that property was still there, and apparently some of these old Warwick County people, you know, Warwickians we call them, would take their little skiffs and go across the Warwick River and go on Fort Eustis when they weren't supposed to, and go to Waterview Plantation House where they had a still going. They were making moonshine from it. The commanding officer out there, I understand, said, you know, this is artillery training place. All we need to do is to lower that artillery just a little bit. We'll take care of it. Eventually it was taken down. I don't think by that means, but was it bombed in the end?
I don't know exactly what happened. It's just a pile of rubble now.
It's a pile of rubble now. Something happened to it. It was a beautiful home.
Courtney and Patrick.
It'd be a great talk. This is something, that's Fred Bolt. We've talked about a couple times today. War of 1812. I don't even remember much about that. We did it, but all right, guys, that was what I had on the little slideshow. We could